Wellness Crew, and welcome to today's reading of Gate 18 of Human Design and Gene Key 18. So we're going to begin with Gate 18 of Human Design. Gate 18, Correction. I Ching, work on what has been spoiled. Astrology, Libra. Biology, spleen and lymphatic system. Gate 18 is the intuition to make things perfect. Thank you so much for the like. It is the gate of the editor and the accountant. This is also a splenic gate, so there is no thinking here, just intuitive understanding. And of course, fear. The fear of this gate is that nothing will be perfect. And as with all splenic gates, there's potential for someone to shut down because they will never get it right. Gate 18 can feel harsh, especially if it is not recognized. There is no motor connected to Gate 18. The energy has to be recognized and called out by others. When it is asked for, it is brilliant and vital. We need people who can fix things and know how to make them better. They can find the perfect pattern and bring it out in a powerful way. This is the gift and the curse of Gate 18. And of course, because it is intuitive and located close to the root center, often people with this gate feel pressured to share their correction. Oftentimes people will either react poorly or they won't listen. Sometimes we call Gate 18 the C, I told you so, gate. And we'll come back to this for affirmations and journaling prompts. But let's move on to Gene Key 18. The 18th Gene Key. The healing power of mind. Siddhi, perfection. Gift, integrity. Shadow, judgment. Programming partner, 17th Gene Key. Thank you so much for the like. Codon ring, the ring of matter. 18, 46, 48, 57. Hi, Danny. Physiology, lymphatic system. Amino acid, alanine. The 18th shadow, judgment. The victim mind. Built into the human genetic matrix is a deep sensitivity to imperfection. And it is this sensitivity that gives rise to the human qualities of criticism and judgment. Thank you so much, Danny. You're very kind. As we shall see, the 18th Gene Key and its themes of judgment and integrity can have either an empowering or a disempowering effect on you and others. This theme of judgment runs about as deep in human nature as any other trait you can imagine. The 18th shadow begins in your childhood. It has a built-in need to challenge authority, and the first real authority in your life is your parents. Challenging our parents is a fundamentally healthy thing to do, as it is a part of our innate urge to become differentiated. This process begins in earnest as we enter our third 7-year cycle and roughly spans the ages of 14 to 27. To 20 through 21, excuse me. Can you imagine if it was through 27? Oh my goodness. This stage of our development primarily concerns the growth and expansion of our mental faculties. And it is during this period that our future opinions are laid down and our capacity to judge is tested and forged. I'm right there with you, Danny. I'm 36. The key to this process lies more in the frequency of the parents than the child. If the parents make the mistake of taking this process personally, the child will never fully make the transition through this biological phase, instead becoming stuck at the same low frequency as the parents. If, however, the parents do not get stuck in their own judgmental or self-judgmental patterns, then this phase will result in true adulthood. Sadly, most children never make it to true adulthood, but stay solidly trapped in deep low frequency patterns of judgment for the rest of their lives. The 18th shadow gives rise to a collective phenomenon in the world known as the victim mind. The victim mind is a conglomeration of all the undermining, judgmental thought patterns throughout the world. If you sincerely examine your own thoughts during a typical day, you will probably discover that a great percentage of your thinking is affected by the victim mind. In other words, you are allowing your mind to be influenced by the collective negative thought patterns of the whole of humanity. The true import of this last statement can come as a huge shock to many people. The world of the victim mind is an inner world of gossip, complaining, and worrying. Most of us complain inwardly about all aspects of our lives, especially the people in our relationships, and we worry incessantly about mundane issues such as money and our health. Ironically, it is exactly this kind of thinking that keeps us from being abundant in terms of both our wealth and our health. You may think it is absolutely human to complain, but it creates. Thank you very much, Danny. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your feedback. But it creates a negative frequency in the human aura of both the complainer and the victim. In other words, the more you complain, the more you damage yourself and the world. Morally speaking, judgment gets a bad rap in the modern world. We talk about being non-judgmental as though it were one of the highest goals in life. In fact, it is impossible not to judge, because judgment is the way in which the human mind thinks. What defines the low frequency of the victim mind is that you identify with what you think. In other words, your judgments define your identity and make you feel secure. However, if you can make a judgment and at the same time be aware of judging, then you are no longer trapped by your own mind, and thus the frequency around that judgment changes. Because the 18th shadow is twinned with the 17th shadow of opinion, these two genetic themes are inseparably linked through the structure of your DNA. All judgment is rooted in opinion and vice versa. The more you think you are your opinions, the more you have to defend them, whereas the more lightly they are held, the less attached you will be to being right. This 18th shadow is about needing to be right. It takes a loosening and a lightening of your identity to let go of your need to be right. If this gene key is a part of your hologenetic profile, then the most important question to ask yourself is, would I rather be right or happy? What is so fascinating about the 18th shadow is that the details of the judgments themselves are utterly irrelevant. It doesn't matter what your political views are or how much you might detest or disapprove of someone. The only thing that matters is how seriously you take your own judgments. If your identity rests on your judgments, then everywhere you go, you will stir up people negatively, not through your opinions, but through the turbulent frequency you put out into your environment. Even if your judgment feels positive to you, the chances are it will still be misread by others just because you hold it so tightly. The themes of both the 17th and 18th shadows can also become easily obsessed with details. The victim mind can fixate on the tiniest and most irrelevant details in life. At a low frequency, these are the kinds of minds that blow things far out of proportion, espousing opinions that are actually far removed from the facts. The 18th shadow holds another of the key secrets of all human interaction. All judgment is self-judgment. Because we humans perceive ourselves as separate from each other, we miss this vital fact. To challenge another person is to create a division within yourself. This does not mean that you should never challenge others, but it does mean that you need to remember that the other represents something inside of you that you are being given an opportunity to resolve. The key to raising the frequency of the 18th shadow lies in this perspective that everything external in your life is a mirror of an internal process seeking resolution. Yes, you take care, Danny. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is why the highest aspect of the 18th gene key is perfection, because life is continually offering you a pathway to the realization of your own perfection. As an aspect of the codon ring of matter, the 18th gene key is part of a genetic chain of low-frequency fears buried in the human genome. These fears lie deep within the body's immune system and create the matrix for all human initiation into higher states. It is precisely your passage through these fears that allows you to gain access to the higher levels of frequency and realization. It is through the cluster of gene keys within this codon that spirit first penetrates into the world of matter and releases its true radiance. In this inner world, the 18th shadow governs the integrity of your mental body, your mind. The secret of this shadow is the gradual realization that your outer life is your greater body. The more deeply you accept responsibility for this, the less personally you take life and the easier it becomes. The 18th shadow is thus a place inside your DNA that causes you to become mentally attached to the material world and all its distractions, which in the long run only serves to increase your suffering. However, as you escape the victim mind, you begin to alter the coding structure of this aspect of your DNA, thereby attracting a higher energetic frequency stream into your life and changing everything for the better. Repressive nature, inferiority. The repressive side of the 18th shadow is about feeling inferior. This pattern first develops through our relationship with our parents, particularly in our teen years. If our parents judge us too harshly during these formative years, a pattern of self-judgment sets in. If you are one of these people, then your pattern is to turn judgment in on yourself. Out of your own self-judgment, you become a conformist, going along with the majority instead of standing up for yourself, you and your own convictions. All judgment is based on comparison. And with self-judgment, you compare yourself unfavorably to someone who you consider to be above you. This in turn gives rise to a deep-seated feeling of inferiority and a constant habit of undermining yourself. Reactive nature, superiority. The reactive side of the 18th shadow manifests as the judgment of others based on feeling superior. This judgment emerges as a constant need to challenge any authority figure, beginning with the parents. If the process of challenging one's parents is not permitted a natural resolution, this behavior pattern becomes a permanent part of one's character. It occurs when our parents do not maintain strong enough boundaries around us and instead fall victim to their own self-judgments. The urge to challenge then becomes cemented by an unconscious anger in the child that the parents were not strong enough to maintain their integrity. This translates in the teen's life to a deep disrespect for authority and a belief that one is somehow above it. These are volatile people whose very identity is then built around the undermining of others. The 18th gift, integrity. The stress is just not wanting to work with me today. The middle thing right before I got on here, the thing that holds it together unclicked, and so I didn't realize it until right before I started live streaming. So I was like, okay, and I didn't think that it was going to be so like needing constant attention, but it really is. So I do apologize for the constant fidgeting, but I did not know how loose this was going to be, and yeah, I really wish I would have gotten a safety pin or something, but I had no idea until I started doing my live stream how bad this was going to be coming undone. Taking on the world. The 18th gene key is psychologically extremely profound. It is actually the basis of psychology because it holds the keys to human conditioning. From the moment a child is born, an innate urge inside its DNA begins to explore the boundaries of its environment. This gene key is about the material, emotional, and mental boundaries that you meet throughout your life. Because we are biologically imprinted in 7-year cycles, it is possible to say that we have not fully incarnated into our lives until the age of 21. The first 7 years critically tests the integrity of the physical world through the development of our physical foundations, our skeletal structure, muscles, basic physiology, and movement. The second 7-year cycle sees the development of our emotional life as we pass through puberty and learn to handle our duality and the way it governs our basic identity through attraction and repulsion. The third 7-year phase completes our incarnative cycle into adulthood by way of our teen years, when our thinking develops extremely rapidly, and we adopt a mental structure made up of many levels of judgment and opinion. Each of the three phases of our early life is built upon each other in a logarithmic fashion. This means that a problem encountered in the first cycle will appear again at the same junction in the second and third cycles. Throughout each of these cycles, the codon ring of matter and its associated gene keys play a crucial role through continued testing of the outer environment. Essentially, these gene keys are looking for constant biofeedback so that the child can orient itself in the world in a healthy manner. The three phases, physical, emotional, and mental, are governed by the 46th, 48th, and 18th gene keys respectively, whereas the 57th gene key lays down the even deeper seeds of these three phases through the 3 trimesters during gestation. Thus, this codon ring is of huge importance at the developmental level as it governs the very infrastructure of our physical, emotional, and mental health. As the gene keys are understood in more depth, these four in particular will bring a great revolution in the way in which we approach the whole notion of child education. Since the 18th gene key governs your intellectual development through your teen years, from 14 to 21, it answers a lot of questions that parents may have about this challenging phase of young adulthood. The patterns that emerge in this third cycle of your life are dependent on what happened in the 2 earlier cycles. If, for example, your parents split up during the middle of the second phase, then this same type of upheaval will appear in your life in the middle of your third cycle. But this time it will have a mental focus rather than an emotional one. At every stage in your early development, you have many opportunities to heal aspects of earlier cycles, or depending on how you and those around you deal with these challenges. Thank you so much for the like, I appreciate that. You will imprint these low frequency patterns even more deeply into your psyche. The third 7-year cycle, governed by the 18th gene key, is therefore the most critical cycle because it represents the last chance parents have to help their child reach true adulthood. If the parents are not rooted deeply in their own integrity, they will fail to create the proper environment for the child to pass cleanly through this most challenging phase. The 18th gene key thus determines whether a child enters adulthood as an integrated adult or as a wounded child posing as an adult. Naturally, parents have to set some strong boundaries during this teenage phase, but the 18th gene key is not really about this. The secret of the gift of integrity is to be able to hold your own space without reacting. to your judgments or self-judgments. As a parent, you will be drawn in by the upheaval of this period in a child's life. But as a parent, you also have to learn to stand back from it and trust in it. If parents truly understood how crucial their role is during this phase in their child's life, they might act with less judgment and feel much surer of themselves. Integrity as a vibration means far more than just holding fast to your values. It is actually a word often used by architects and engineers to describe the strength of material structures. Integrity is a deeply physical attribute and is actually a function of your immune system in maintaining the tensile strength within your body. For many people who have to resolve issues from their teenage cycle, it will take a full 7 years, whether through therapy, body work, or some other sustained system that targets your conditioning. Integrity is born into the human vehicle, but it also has to be earned. Whether during teen years or later on in life. When a person has attained the gift of integrity or grown into it through a healthy passage into adulthood, it will remain forever because it is the true nature of every human being. One of the greatest opportunities of the 64 gene keys is afforded to parents. If you can see the higher frequency of your child from the moment of birth, and if you can continuously hold that frequency for them, through thick and through thin, you will see a living miracle growing before your very eyes. If the 18th gene key is prominent in your hologenetic profile, your life will continually bring you back to these recurring issues rooted in your childhood. You will have to understand what made you the way you are in order to release the aspects of your conditioning that do not belong to you. This stress is driving me nuts. In time, this will make you a master. Your judgment becomes integrity, the archenemy of the victim mind. It is the same energy, the same archetype, but experienced from a higher level of consciousness. Judgment, criticism, and correction are magnificent qualities when used in the right way. The gift of integrity is about demanding and maintaining a high standard in everything you do. As a fully healed adult, your purpose is to help others complete their childhoods so that they can finally enjoy their lives and pass on their integrity to their children. To uphold integrity, you have to be courageous. You have to challenge anything and anyone who does not meet your high standards. To live with integrity is to take on the whole world, to challenge it to meet the high standards you are setting. Wherever you see someone living with integrity, you are seeing someone using the power of judgment in an objective and impersonal way. This is the great gift of the 18th gene key. Not to use or take judgment personally, but to learn to judge from your heart. Judging from the heart can never be cruel because true integrity only has one purpose: to serve the whole in the spirit of truth and compassion. The 18th city, perfection. The, Bod- the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva. Just as the 18th gift completes our journey from childhood to adulthood, the 18th city shows us how to heal our mental anguish and assume our true place in the universe as whole adults. It does this through tireless, compassionate service to the vision of perfection. When you put your integrity in service to the whole, an amazing thing happens. You become more and more dissatisfied. The more good you do, the more you realize how much more you could do. This is known as divine dissatisfaction. Everywhere you look, you see how the world could be improved. As you become more and more anchored in your integrity, you aim higher and higher in your service. Perfection is the highest vision a human being can aim for, and you do begin to aim for this highest of ideals, not for yourself, but for the sake of the world. At this level, you are using the archetype of judgment to challenge the fabric of reality itself. The higher levels are infinite and therefore seem impossible to attain, but like a Zen cone that cannot be solved by the mind, if you keep aiming for perfection, it will eventually blossom within you as a natural state. You will pass beyond the very definition of perfection. The 18th city contains some profound paradoxes. Living in a state of perfection entails the death of the mind, and as such, perfection is an ending. When you realize perfection, evolution ends. But the 18th city is the source of the tradition of the Bodhisattva vow. The Bodhisattva is a being who forgoes their highest state of consciousness in order to stay in the world and help others attain that state. This tradition holds a deeply metaphorical genetic truth. Our genes are all bodhisattvas, programmed to serve the whole until it has attained perfection. We have seen that the 18th gene key is designed to ensure human health by constantly challenging our environment to come in line with higher principles. What then is perfect health? This is an interesting question because it involves the whole of creation. The true physical health of humanity cannot be attained until all human wounds have been healed. Even though a human may attain a state of perfection beyond all human understanding, the body is still a part of humanity, and as long as there are still wounds in the world, almost nobody can experience perfect health. In other words, perfect health cannot occur unless the whole world is healed. This is why the acidic states of consciousness still have a purpose in the world. They reflect the state of inner perfection to all humanity, so that in time we will recreate that state in the outer world as well. The 18th city will also one day bring a new science of mental healing into the world. This science will be built upon the understanding that the mind is an energy field existing on its own plane. As we begin to unlock this city, so our minds can be used to heal mental, emotional, and even physical problems instantaneously. Even deep psychic disturbances can be completely healed through contact with this 18th city. It will herald a new age of healing in which human perfection will come thicker and faster than we may believe. The codon ring of matter ensures that the whole of humanity must one day reach a state of perfection where evolution ends and we as a species finally enter the dimension of eternity. Each of the gene keys within this ring is responsible for an aspect of the spiritualization of the material plane. The 18th city contains the knowledge of how to bring perfection to earth through the mental plane. To the one who lives within the city, perfection is already here as an imprint underlying all creation. These people live in the Eden that we all long for, but paradoxically, they must help move that state from the inner reality to the outer. The 18th city is not often seen in the world today. It involves the incarnation of an archetype of perfection. Such people are tireless in the service they give to humanity. Paradoxically, they know through personal spiritual experience that the world is perfect exactly as it is. There is nothing about the world that need be improved. Yet they are driven by this archetype of perfection to keep tirelessly improving both themselves and the world until they die. All beings within the Siddhic state share this dilemma of having completed their inner evolution, yet find themselves still living in the world. The physical vehicle completely changes its programming after entering the highest Siddhic state of enlightenment. If the 18th gene key is activated within your hologenetic profile, then you will continue to lead humanity towards perfection in any and every way you can conceive of. Often such people are called saints. I'm just trying to fix my dress and my hair without flashing the world. Another aspect of the 18th city concerns the way in which we think, and especially the way in which we think about others. One of the great universal laws is that the energy follows thought. This gene key has enormous power over the mental plane and can completely reformat a person's mental reality. Someone demonstrating the 18th city is above the victim mind. When they look at someone, even someone who appears genuinely evil, they see only the higher self hidden in that person. By holding this high thought frequency around that person, they actually influence hidden currents of energy that raise the frequency of the other. This is called Siddhic thinking, and it involves thinking with the heart. This is much more than positive thinking. Siddhic thinking is really an energy field surrounding the aura of the one manifesting the 18th city. And in this sense, it should not be considered thinking in the normal sense of the word. Each gene key has its own higher programming function. Some are designed to just sit there awash in the bliss of their nirvana, whilst others have far more definitive roles to fulfill. The 18th city actually serves a very mystical purpose. It heals the split in the mental plane itself, bringing humanity closer and closer to its realization of oneness. It cannot and will not sit still until this great rift in the world mind has been healed. Higher reality perceives the mind not as a mere function of the human brain, but as a mental body or plane woven into the living aura. This mental body is both an individual construct in the human auric field and a great plane that unites all human beings as one. Perfection only exists within the timeless realm. It is beyond time and space because it is the end of evolution. The Bodhisattva gene keys keep returning to our planet as individual human beings whose sole purpose is to build this collective vision of perfection on the material plane. All human beings are involved in this great dance, whether we are aware of it or not. We are all moving towards the single dream of a species that will one day attain perfection and reach the end of its story. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the affirmations and the journaling prompts. Affirmation. My entire life is a process of ever expanding perfection. Where I am right now is the sum total of all of my experiences. And as I learn and grow, so does my understanding and consciousness. I am perfect right now. My so called mistakes are catalysts for my growth, and I enjoy correcting patterns and bringing more and more alignment with my divinity into my life. Each and every day offers me opportunities to grow and expand, and I am grateful. When you look at your life, which patterns of success are you aware of? What can you do to encourage these patterns to keep you repeating? When you look at your life, what patterns of self-sabotage are you aware of? What can you do to shift these patterns? What do you need to work on releasing? Judgment? Forgiveness? In your creative process, what needs to be tweaked in order to be brought into a more aligned expression? All right, so that is Human Design's Gate 18 and Gene Key 18. Thank you so much for joining me for today's live stream. I am incredibly grateful. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off with content. And I'll see you on the next video or live stream. Be well, stay wild as well.